So, I just finished watching a video on the discussion by black pastors about whether or not Jesus was black or not, and the historical evidence that, Jesus was of a Middle Eastern or African descent, and how that's important into the discussion of whether blacks are practicing a white man's religion. Well, here's the fallacy of that entire argument. It's 2 points. One, the lesser point, that by the time Jesus was born, both the Greeks prior and the Romans currently were running both the Middle East and North Africa. There were plenty of Europeans in that area, both coming from the northern part of the Roman Empire and from Rome itself. 2, the Jews were not indigenous to the Middle East. I'll say it again. The Jews were not indigenous to the Middle East. They came from somewhere else. For 40 years, they wandered. And then came to the Middle East. Just remember that. I said there were 2 points. Actually, there's a third point, and a bigger point, and a larger point. In the mythology of Jesus, because it is a mythology after all, in the mythology of Jesus, his father is not Joseph. And so the begots and begots and begots doesn't matter in his lineage at all. His father is a mythological God. And God has no race. And if God has no race, then his son has no race. His son could be whatever God wants him to be. He has no human DNA on his father's side. So if God is Jesus' father and God has no color, then what color is he? It's irrelevant. It's a myth. It's fiction. It's Zeus coming from on high and impregnating a woman to create Hercules. It's a story that's been told, not the greatest story ever told. It's the greatest story ever stole. There's nothing new about it. And the importance of Jesus' color is nonsensical to the black history of it being imposed upon people in order to justify the buying, selling, and keeping of slaves. Of breaking someone's culture and language. Of the rape, murder, and torture of millions of people. While on Sunday they went to church with a light heart. Because they were comforted by what they did through the book that they read. That they were justified and right. That is the only point of saying you are still slaves mentally by preaching a white man's religion. Not 2,000 years ago what happened, but what happened here in the Americas. Who implemented it and how they implemented it. That is the only question when it comes down to when we say white man's religion. Not whether blacks were originally part of the Christian church. Were some of the 12 apostles black? Whether we know through history that most of the paintings we see are misrepresentations of a mythology, one, not real events. And most of the paintings were painted during the Renaissance in Europe. They are not photographs. They are artist interpretations. So, when you try to justify blacks being Christians, because Christianity is historically a Middle Eastern religion and a North African religion, and that there were plenty of blacks who were Christians way before slavery. One, that's treating the continent of Africa as one entity and not the diverse historical and cultural place of the birth of man that it is. The countries that were conquered by the Greeks and the Romans, who were in place when the Christian Revolution came about, and were converted likewise as Roman citizens into Christianity, again by force of economic and terror. Compared to the people on the west coast of Africa, hundreds of years later, has no relevance. Get your history, know the facts, know the truth. Separate myth from history. And when you know your history, you'll understand why we say you are enslaved as a Christian in a white man's religion.